We're now at one of the most emotional, historical, and transformative places in the entire experience for the National Civil Rights Museum, and that is room 306. This is the actual room Dr. King was in on April 3rd and 4th of 1968. The room has been maintained as it was on April 4th, the day of his assassination, where he had been staying there. The food service was as it was, where he had had lunch. The bed covers are still pulled back. So this was the actual last place where he stayed in 1968. We were very fortunate in that the owner of the motel had the presence of mind to lock this room away after Dr. King's death and to maintain it so that we were able to come in and make sure it was as it was in '68. This is the actual last stop on the tour in this particular part of our exhibition until we go across the street for the expansion. The music that you're hearing is Mahalia Jackson singing Precious Lord, and that is very important to the story because the day of his assassination, as he was standing on the balcony about to go to dinner, he was talking to the musician who was going to be playing for a meeting here in Memphis that night. And he requested that musician to play the song Precious Lord and to play it, quote unquote, real pretty. Those were the last words Dr. King said before this bullet rang out, which took his life on the balcony about 6:01 p.m. on April 4th, 1968. As you recall, it was in 1966 and 67, Dr. King started planning his Poor People's Campaign. Well, that particular march was scheduled to take place in June of 1968. Of course, Dr. King was killed in April of 1968, but under the leadership of his widow, Coretta Scott King, that Poor People's March campaign still took place to Washington, D.C. So poor people from all over the South got together in what they called the mule train and wagon train processions, and they got together and they rode in these wagons, and they were going to set up tents on the Washington Mall to show the world the plight of the poor. So that still took place in June of 1968, and this is one of the wagon replicas that the average participant would use as they took their mule trains from Mississippi and Alabama and the Carolinas all the way up to Washington, D.C. It was called the Poor People's March Campaign. Very unique. And they did camp out in tents on the Washington Mall. Your very last stop here at the National Civil Rights Museum is in this room, which we call our Freedom Room. And it speaks to the international movement as well as the national movement here in America. It speaks to civil and human rights. And we pay honor to the people who marched with King, and even some of those who did not, but certainly learned from King, who's taken King's legacy and used it to push forth another wave of change in this country as well as internationally. You can look at the Freedom Wall and you can see historical leaders like Desmond Tutu or Thurgood Marshall or Elie Wiesel or Rosa Parks. But then you'll also notice contemporaries such as Stevie Wonder. And then you've got Magic Johnson and Harry Belafonte, Oprah Winfrey. They all come to this space to receive their award, to speak to thousands of school children at no charge, to walk the museum space, to see the legacy. But more importantly, they have learned from King how to take their celebrity, to take their power, and use it for the good of those who have no celebrity, who have no power, and to give everybody a sense of hope. This is the Freedom Award room. These are our Freedom Award winners, and that is why we exist today, to keep the legacy alive of not just Dr. King, but everyone who believes in what Dr. King lived for and died for.